Hello, everyone. I am Brian Ray. I head up the data and AI business line for North America at Atos.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Cook. I'm the global CTO for the AWS Alliance at Atos.
Hi, and I'm Mark Ross. I'm our Chief Architect for AWS in our engineering function.
So we're going to demystify a bit about the Agentic AI and give you guys a little bit about the critical path forward, productionizing AI, and give you a real honest landscape of what it looks like today. First off, a little bit about where Atos is at. Atos has been around 20 some years. My group came in from a lot of different acquisitions, 17 or so. Philippe Sal, our chairman of the board CEO, said, data and AI is going to be extremely important to consulting, and we need to make a data and AI business line. So that represents 2,000, and we're on track to be 10,000 by 2028. Firm overall, about 80,000 folks. So it's a small portion of a big firm, but it's really a path forward for us and our customers. Myself, I'm an industry expert, and I also really rely a lot on what the industry is saying here. And how many here have seen the Gartner hype curves before? I'm going to interpret this for you a little bit. It's really important to understand what they're trying to say here. Basically, agents, believe it or not, are at the tip of hype right now. I know you're shocked. Has anybody here heard AI? Can everybody spell it? Good. It is a big topic, and it's at the tip of the hype right now. Model ops is coming down, and they call this a trough of disillusionment. That's when people say the reality sets in. This is harder than we thought. We have data availability issues. We don't have the technology needed to do it. We need to go to the AWS conference and learn something. Many reasons it becomes the trough of disillusionment. And you see model ops, Gen AI is already in that. The bubbles bursted to some degree with some of that. And then if you see on the far side, that's the plateau of productivity. That's where we come back out of that trough, and that's where we all want to get. We want this technology to be seamless, part of our daily business life, and we want it to make our lives better and easier, not being challenged by it every day. So that's where we want to get. What we're hearing is we need to make that data available. We need it to be governed. We need to have access to data in all sorts of places, SharePoint, other places like that. Protocols are coming up. You've heard MCP and other protocols making that more available. And also just being able to take some of those use cases and prioritize them based off of ROI and risk and be able to do that better. MIT said 95% of those use cases people plan to do are not really getting into production. That makes a lot of sense if you take a lot of swings. Of course, we're all aiming to be that 5% to get your use cases in production. Another thing from Francis Camusis and Gardner, and this is very helpful because this lays out AI, especially Gen AI, into 5 buckets. On your far right, those are your market makers. Those are, of course, Anthropics and the Googles, Mistrals. Those are the ones that are doing the $100 million investments in it. On your far left, target the category 1. Those are your very consumer-based, easy entry. My mom uses ChatGPT for recipes. It doesn't make her cooking better, but she uses it. And your embedded technology as well. You're getting it embedded into your category 2. Category 3 is where you start using AI to solve specific vertical or horizontal use cases for a specific industry or a department. And then category 4 is where you take your data and you train a model or fine tune it or you gear it specifically to a problem. So those category 3 and 4, it gets more expensive as you get into those spaces. So it's really a hockey stick curve of cost. Speaking of Atos, one of our big focuses is those category 3 and category 4 use cases. It requires lots of partnerships to do it, a lot of technology to do it, but it really has a value, and we're seeing that value every day now. The other thing that you're hearing too is adoption problems. People are given these tools sometimes, and there's a large fallout rate. And it depends on who you are. There's the everyday user. You should go, everybody wants to move from left to right in the slide, okay? Everybody does. Everyday users want to be able to get advanced with AI. Your children will be better at prompt engineering than you, okay? So everybody wants to use this technology. Lots of reasons for that. Governance. I always say that AI without governance is like playing tennis without a net. It doesn't really work and it's not that much fun. But everyone wants to move that direction. If you're advanced or you're agentic, you want to move to more advancing. Why do people fall out of that? Why do they fall out of that matrix? And what happens? When they fall out of it, sometimes you'll see them shadow AI. Shadow AI is when you're using it anyway. Or you'll see someone abandon it completely, saying, we're not going to adopt this AI technology in my workflow because it just isn't working well enough for me. And then what's the solution for that? Partners and technology help, and a need for consulting, a need for community. Eventually there'll be a community around Agentic, believe it or not. There'll even be a currency someday around Agentic. Agents will have their own currency speaking to each other someday, very soon. Think about that for a second.
Hello, everyone. So I'd like to talk for a minute about how we can help you get to the place where Brian wants you to go. At Atos, we're very focused on outcome-based solutions. Instead of just listing a bunch of services and going at that angle, we want you to understand where you're going before you get there. We do that by scaling out competencies. We have 19 of them, a lot of partner programs. What we really focus on is how do we build a relationship with AWS to get the client there faster and more efficiently. So the ultimate goal of our partnership with our clients and with AWS is to grow the relationships on all facets to make agentic evolution come faster. One thing I also really want to discuss is how fast AI is evolving. We know from this conference we are seeing frontier agents, we're seeing different kind of model distillation. One thing that's interesting is the different nuances that we're seeing it with. It's going everywhere from browsing and scraping the web, executing multi-step tasks with strong governance. We see it across a bunch of different standards for security, but when is the actual right time to implement is key. And that is where Atos can help you. We know how to roadmap and we know how to carve out the solutions to do a consistent strategy around agentic AI with all the new feature sets with them, right? So the goal is really around not just creating better agents, but around better frameworks. We want to create a deployment and an orchestration platform with tools and marketplaces that can build and scale and manage the agents in real time, right? This is not just about agility and latency and scalability, but this is about your individual domain needs for that data that's attached to the AI. So what does this all mean? This all means that we're going to start moving towards personifying AI, right? These agents can be self-adaptable, they can collaborate, they can sync, and it's all about using real-time enterprise data that's your data. So we're leveraging your specific data to feed this agent workflow. So as we start shifting more and more towards agentic AI, we're going to accelerate more outcomes with that minimal human intervention. So that's really the key, right? So I want you to ask yourselves the question, is there a path for agentic AI to artificial general intelligence, right? What assumptions are baked into the goals that we give AI in your own individual organizations? And then how do you see that growing? So at Atos, we created a platform called Polaris AI. The ultimate goal is to give an abstraction layer to actually how you build in the marketplace. As we grow and grow agentic AI more and more, we're able to help you build out those professional services. And the objective is that we are always client focused with what you need to do with your data and your AI solutions. So let's talk about go-to-market around agentic. You're going to hear a lot of services in this conference today. You're going to hear a lot about what exactly is going on, new possibilities, but how do you get to the point where you're actually using this with your customers or with your use cases specifically? So the first one is, how do we bring the agents to our system, right? We're seeing a lot more industry-flavored super agents, right? As 2026 evolves for go-to-market, there's a lot of AI-targeted super agents. We're seeing domain-specific applications. So maybe it's finance, maybe it's tax, maybe it's accounting, whatever that is, industry standards are baked horizontally and vertically across all organizations now. Autonomy, multimodal integration. We know this is coming out more and more. We're seeing different modalities, text, vision, whatever it is, and they're acting with more flexibility and they're handling those novel tasks we don't really need to do anymore. And last but not least, a lot of safety, alignment, and oversight. How do we put those guardrails and frameworks around detection drifting, ensuring alignment, and items like run checks? So it's tricky, but you need to make sure that you're prepared. And that is the next point. How do we proactively prepare to move towards this go-to-market, right? So at Atos, one thing that we really specify is industry-aligned solutions where we're amplifying the actual value of the AWS services. So you can look at the service catalog, you can put them together, but how does this work to create an outcome? That's what we really design, right? We design the roadmap for you. And this is always about business outcomes, right? We can go and talk about AI innovation all day, but if you do not put that through a business lens, you're not able to prioritize those measurable outcomes and connect those to things like KPIs and actual cloud capabilities that you're having spend with, right? The third, differentiation. Understanding differentiation factors through an AI-first strategy, which you're going to see more and more over the next year, is critical. And that's just because we're not just bolt-on anymore, right? We're building cloud native now. That changes how we see AI. So the key is to bring your vertical depth and your AI accelerators with that native implementation for that faster TTV, or your time to value. And last but not least, a really important one, proprietary IP, the vertical AI solutions. I want to talk about that, which is really critical. How do we scale our AI solutions vertically and horizontally, maybe against different geos, different industries, different regions, is going to be really critical in the next year, right? You want to grow across all methodologies all at once. And then how do we look through a lens of sovereign cloud expertise as well? That's something that we specialize at Atos that we can help you with, as well as a data-first architecture. This one is very interesting, right? We want to make sure that we're leveraging the data we have in our ecosystem for our models and for agentic AI. It's there, we need to leverage it, and we need to make sure that we're using it correctly. And last but not least, how does this all fit into AI, agentic AI orchestration, right? How does this build, and how can we help you get there is the next step. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. So at Atos, we're a large GSI. We've got a cloud and modern infrastructure practice. One of the things we provide to customers is cloud advisory. Traditionally, cloud advisory has been done with one of our cloud advisors sitting down with customers and talking to them about their current environment, their goals, and helping to map out how they get there. It can be quite a time-consuming process involving discussions with multiple stakeholders on the customer side, and we've chosen as one of the use cases that we've taken forward with Agentic AI to modernize that with our Atos Digital Advisor. So the idea here is that using Agentic AI, we connect to the customer's environment, we learn a lot of information about their environment, connect to the web, learn a lot about the customer before the advisor sits down with the key stakeholders from the customer from the first time. So this frees up our advisors initially to be able to spend more meaningful time with customers, having more meaningful conversations. So, and it's great for the customer because they haven't got to sit down and explain their environment to us and spend that time. The time can be better spent talking about where they want to go and how we can get there with them. We can see on the screen here, we've just got a couple of screenshots of the digital advisory platform. We look across a number of domains and we assess the customer's maturity in those domains, and then that helps to have the conversation about, okay, what's a priority for you? Is it security? Is it sustainability? That sort of thing, and help to move them in the right direction. We then have Agentic AI powered reporting as well. So it creates this maturity assessment automatically. It comes up with the recommendations of how the customer maturity can improve. And then when the advisor sits down with the customer, this information is all available to start that meaningful conversation. As you probably expect, given it's an AWS conference, this is all powered by AWS services. The front-end UI that I showed on the last screen connects to Amazon API Gateway, which triggers a Lambda function, and then AWS step functions kick in to answer all of the questions within our advisory pack. They can be a range of technical questions about the customer's AWS environment. They can be a bunch of non-technical questions about compliance regimes and things like that. The step functions are triggering Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, so we're using the Agentic AI services that we're all hearing a lot about this week within Bedrock. We're storing information in Amazon S3, we're caching information in DynamoDB. The Amazon Bedrock Agent Core supervisor agent kicks in, it takes the questions from the questionnaire and it works out what to do with them. If it's a question about security and compliance, for example, it defers it to an agent that's doing web searching So, for example, if this was going to do an assessment for a healthcare customer here in the US, and the question was around what compliance regimes might that customer need to comply with, then the agent will go out, learn from the web that it's likely this customer is going to need to be HIPAA compliant. If it's a question of a more technical nature, that gets delegated to another agent. So, for example, let's say, how does the customer separate their networking? That's a fairly generic question. So the first thing that happens is it goes to an agent that talks via an MCP server to the AWS documentation. And that generic question about how do you segregate your networks becomes a much more AWS specific question involving security groups, NACLs, AWS network firewall, routing of transit gateways and things like that. That more detailed question then gets passed on to the next agent, which actually does querying via MCP of the customer's environment. So that much more complex question is handled by the agent and the MCP server. It goes off and interrogates the customer's environment, and then that information all comes back into the reporting that I talked about on the previous slide. The human agent then sits down with the customer, validates that information, so we've got human in the loop to ensure accuracy of the information, and they'll talk through with the customer, they'll discuss the relevant information, check it for accuracy, etc. And as I said before, have a much more meaningful conversation with customers about how we help them to move to where they want to be, rather than spending all the time talking to them about where they currently are. So we're over on booth 1661. We're Atos. If you're interested in a conversation about digital advisory or cloud modernization and migration or data and AI, then please come and see us. And I wish you a good day. Have a great conference.